Hey, it's Heather Adams from MassLive. Today is National Dog Day, and I am here with Cynthia and Michelle from Bright Spot Therapy Dogs. All right, can you guys explain to me a little bit about what you do in Bright Spot Therapy Dogs?
Well, I'm Cynthia Hinckley. I'm the founder of Bright Spot Therapy Dogs and the executive director. And we train and certify therapy dog teams to go in and visit people in healthcare and educational settings. Now, that is a very different type of thing than what service dogs do. And before I talk any more about what therapy dogs do, I think it's a good idea to talk about the difference between service dogs and therapy dogs. People get this mixed up a lot. And I often get contacted by people saying, I need a therapy dog for, let's say, my child who has some sort of disability. And can I get a therapy dog from you trained for my son or daughter? And I explain to them that what they are looking for is a service dog, because a service dog is specially trained to help a person that they live with that has some kind of a disability. A therapy dog is trained with its handler, usually that's the owner, and they're trained as a team to go out and help other people that are in need. And Bright Spot, when we started in 2004, we were just here locally in Western Massachusetts, and we visited a few nursing homes. And today, with the understanding, research has shown how therapeutic interacting with a dog can be, that the doors have opened wide to dogs visiting, therapy dogs visiting in every type of healthcare facility, be it the nursing home, hospitals, hospice care, visiting people with Alzheimer's, mental health facilities. Dogs do amazing things to help people that are very depressed. And now schools were a little slower to get into this because of liability issues and all kinds of allergies and all kinds of things. Michelle actually can speak a little more on that because she's a school principal. But now today schools are recognizing, saying it's more of an advantage to have the dogs here than it is a disadvantage. You know, that just far outweighs any type of disadvantage. And I've been visiting with my therapy dogs for 24 years, and knock on wood, never had any type of incident occur.
So what do you do when you go to a nursing home versus a school or a hospital?
Well, in our training program, everyone that comes to Bright Spot to become trained with us, evaluated, and then certified, they have to take our required training course, which teaches them the skills and techniques that they need. It's a broad approach, and I'm actually going to turn that over to Michelle Karb, who is with me, who is our trainer, because she is the one that has prepared the course that we teach all of our volunteers, dogs and handlers, that become certified with us.
So the training course is, the course is taught in 2 classes, 2 2-hour sessions, and the objectives of the course are to prepare therapy dog teams for their evaluation so that then they can go on to be productive therapy dog teams and have a rewarding experience. So the class is very organized and very structured. We start with just sort of some basic obedience because usually when handlers come in and dogs, they're pretty nervous, and there's no more stimulating and charged environment for a dog than being with 7 or 8 or 9 other dogs with a lot of energy. So oftentimes the handlers are anxious, and then the dogs feel that too. So there's just a lot of energy the first class. So My job is to really kind of calm people down and help them relax and enjoy the journey of training with their dogs, because it's a lot of fun. So we do some basic obedience, because although one of the prerequisites to take our training course is that dogs have basic obedience, it's really important for handlers to be working on obedience skills in all kinds of environments where there are a lot of distractions and stimulation. So PetSmart, parking lots of stores, any place you can take your dog, because wherever you are working as a therapy dog team, you really want your dog to respond to you no matter what. So we do some work on that. We work on entering and exiting facilities, because when you start doing therapy dog work and you're going to different places, you don't want your dog to be sort of charging in and out of places, and they are excited too, going to new places. So we work on that. We do some role playing where some of the handlers in class take on roles of maybe residents in nursing homes or patients in hospitals, and we take on roles where some of the people will act really exuberant and maybe really rough, a little bit physical, just so that the dogs and handlers can sort of be prepared for some of the things that they might encounter. So a lot of the training is really about working on the bond between the handler and the dog, and really realizing that the therapy work that we do is really about both ends of the leash, and it has to be enjoyable for both parties. And I always talk with people about, you may think you want to work in a hospital, but that may not be what your dog enjoys. So you have to find a good match for both of you. So we spend time talking about those kinds of things, and really practicing just basic general skills that any therapy dog team is going to need. And this is a puppy, so you can probably see the difference. This is Betty. She's in training to be a therapy dog. As you can see, King is much calmer. Betty's only 6 months old, so
and King is 7 years old.
so there's a big difference. And Betty loves all people, which is certainly a prerequisite, and it's the most important thing. But she has a lot of energy and a lot of exuberance. So we are working on getting that under control a little bit. And as Cynthia mentioned earlier, I am fortunate that I work in a school district in the Northborough Southborough Public Schools where it's very supported that we bring animals into school. So I had a therapy dog that I was bringing to school. She had to retire, but she spent about 2,000 hours there, and she was the first one at the middle school where I'm the principal. And Betty's been coming to school with me since she was about 9 weeks old. And the kids absolutely love her, and it's the best socialization that I could offer her. So, again, as you can see, we've got some work to do.
So what do you do when a therapy dog comes to a school?
So there are different things, and Cynthia can talk about the Bright Spot Reading Buddies program, but at our school I can speak about what we do. We have students with anxiety, we have students with depression, we have students with all sorts of different things that they bring in with them, and so oftentimes students will sit with the dogs. We have another therapy dog that comes in as well, just to kind of calm down, take a break from the stressors of their school day. Sometimes we have students take the dogs for walks because they absolutely love that, and it's a nice way for students to bond with maybe a guidance counselor or a teacher, and you're not just sitting looking at your counselor, you're walking a dog, which is kind of a normal thing to do, and it feels comfortable for the kids. So at school, our dogs do a lot of different things. They work with English language learners. They can read to the dogs. Sometimes they provide support to parents in really kind of intense meetings. Sometimes they provide support to staff members who are going through personal struggles or struggles at work. So they really have just added a dimension to our culture at school, and just made it an even better place to be.
So how did you know that she was going to do well as a therapy dog, or how did you know she was going to do well? I mean, how do you choose this?
Well, want me to talk first about the puppy?
Oh, sure.
All right. So Betty, I got her when she was 8 weeks old, so I hoped that she would have the personality to be a therapy dog. So I started bringing her to school, and she loved all people, so that's the main thing that she needed to have. And the more, she's used to all kinds of sounds and stimulation, so that's great. And I think because she's growing up with the kids and growing up in the environment where I really wanted to do most of her work, she really has been a good match for that. So I was hoping that she's a Labradoodle, and I've had labs in the past, and they love people, so I was hoping that she would, and she does. So Again, we have a little ways to go on our journey, but she's doing really well.
Well, one thing I always say to people is, all dogs, all of dog lovers think their dog is wonderful. So all dogs are wonderful, but they're not all going to be able to be therapy dogs. And I actually currently have 3 dogs at home, King and his sister Lily, and they are both therapy dogs, but my oldest one is 9, and that's Annabelle, and she is not a therapy dog because she's very shy. She does not like to interact with people. She is going in the other direction, and she likes to stay at home. She doesn't want to really even get in the car. So, although I had high hopes that she might evolve, it's not. I once had some people come for an evaluation with a dog. I won't even mention the breed. And it was a husband and wife team. They desperately wanted their dog to be a therapy dog, and the dog desperately did not want to be a therapy dog. It cringed. They had to drag it in through the door. The dog was behind the woman's skirt through the entire thing, and usually in an evaluation, if the dog is not going to pass, the owner can see themselves that it's not working. They were so convinced because their dog was so sweet and lovable that this dog should be a therapy dog, and they took it as a real offense against their dog that I had to turn them down. But you have to have the dog has to have an outgoing personality and love to interact with people that they've never met before and go into a strange place. Now, King came to me I have a breeder that I've known for years who has given me all of my lovely English setters, and King had a show dog career. He's a grand champion, and he came to me when he was 4 years old. So for the first 4 years of his life, he was being shown, and a show dog has to be able to stand there and have all kinds of people handling them and go into all kinds of different buildings where the dog shows are being taken place with a lot of noise going on, a lot of people mingling here and there. So it's a great socialization background for a dog to have gone through that type of thing, or the kind of thing that Michelle is doing with her puppy. They've really got to get out and about. So King, as you can see, is a super relaxed boy. And his job as a therapy dog is he is part of our Reading Buddy program that we have in elementary schools. It first started, I think we were about 5 years ago. It started as an after-school program at the West Hampton Elementary School. The librarian there called me up and asked me if we would like to start one there. And it was so successful through word of mouth. We had another school asking for it, and so we now have Reading Buddy programs in elementary schools, middle schools, and in a high school in Maine, in 18 elementary schools in in Massachusetts, and in an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school in Connecticut. So it has really and for 3 years we received a wonderful grant from the Charter Oak Foundation to help us build our program to help children who are underperforming in schools to succeed in their reading skills so that they would do better in school. And we started a Reading Buddy book series. This is King has his book, and his sister Lily has her book, and Michelle's dog that has retired, Coco, she has quite a series of books, and many of our Reading Buddies that are involved with the program have books, and the kids absolutely love reading the books. So when they come in to have a one-on-one session with the dog, the whole idea is that it's very relaxed. They're petting the dog while they're reading. Their anxiety level goes down. They're not being judged by peers or anybody that they feel would make fun of them. The teacher sends them in with a book, or it might be a couple of books to read during the session. And if they finish that, then they get to pick one of, I have a whole bag full of all the different reading buddy books of the different reading buddies, and they love reading them. And they always love reading Coco's, and Sophie, another one of her dogs is Sophie. They love reading Sophie's books. So that it's like a reward, and it's just fabulous because it gets them, and it's very, very simple reading. So no matter what kind of level the child is on, it's more of just reading out loud and developing that oral reading skill and just the feel-good feeling that they get. So that was a wonderful thing that we've been able to do with that grant money. So,
And you talked to me earlier about certain breeds that might be good.
well, we get asked that question all the time, Heather. That's a very good question. I get emails all the time from people saying, it's a lot of, I want to do this, because they read about what we do and they think, gee, I would love to get involved with this kind of thing. People who like to volunteer, and if they love dogs, they want to put their desire to volunteer with their dog, and share their wonderful dog with other people. And some people actually call and say, I want to get a puppy to do therapy dog work with. Are there any particular, they really have a clean slate. What kind of a dog should I get? And I always, or when I'm giving a talk to a group of people, I'll often put up the whole, on our website, we have all of the pictures of all of our bright spots. And through the years, we've evaluated over 300 teams. And so they're all up there on the website. And so when I do a talk and I put a photo up on the screen of the composite of all the dogs, I say, if you look closely, they're all different kinds of dogs. They're little dogs, they're giant, we've had giant Great Danes, and then a lot of middle-sized dogs. That's the biggie. But I always say it's just like people. Some people are good for this, and some aren't. And the same goes for the dog. It's all about the personality, and the dog has to have it. And we're really, when we start out, we have a screening process. They have to fill out a screening questionnaire, which is on our website, and they download that and either email it in or send it in. And that will kind of screen out some people that are not suited for, they might not realize, what types of things they need to have mastered with their dog, or what type of personality the dog should have. So that's where it starts. But what I always say, it has to, don't go by definitely. Now, my breed is English setters. They are basically like this. They are very laid back. I once had someone, painter, painting inside my house, and he said he couldn't believe I usually have about three English setters in the house. He said, I cannot believe you have 3 dogs in your house, because I have one Boston Terrier who runs around in circles, barks all the time, and makes lots of noise. And my dogs they're like large cats, basically. So they are good for therapy work in general. But again, I have one that isn't, and if you look closely at our composite on the types of dogs that are there, you will find a lot of Goldens, I have to say. Mm-hmm. There are quite a few Goldens.
And labs.
And labs, yeah. But that's not to say, because I don't evaluate dogs anymore, but I used to evaluate, and I've evaluated hundreds of dogs. And I have had some out of control labs and Goldens come in. So, some people think that they get a lab or they get a Golden and it's already trained. It's not already trained. Anybody getting a dog has got to train it. It doesn't matter if they're doing therapy dog work. It just, if you want to have a dog and a good relationship with your dog and have it be a member of your family, you have to spend the time putting in to train that dog. And we don't train dogs at Bright Spot Therapy Dogs in basic obedience skills. So when Michelle is doing her class, she's reviewing those skills, but we're not teaching the dog that. They have to come to us as well-mannered dogs, and then we review those manners, those basic obedience skills, and then we build on them with the skills and techniques that they need to know to be doing a successful visit. And Michelle did mention both ends of the leash are important because, the person has to interact as well. The dog and the person. I used to visit hospice patients with my dog that has passed away, James. He was a wonderful dog for visiting hospice patients because, King is very much like that. He just lay on beds for like 2 hours at a time because we're visiting hospice patients. But, you have to pick the right place to visit for your dog's personality.
So if you're evaluating a dog, like pretend we were evaluating King, what's a few things you would look at?
I would want to see that the dog is moving towards the individual to interact, not backing away. That's the very first thing. Well, the first thing, of course, is to see that it's under control as it comes in. As the team comes in, we're looking for the handler and the dog working as a team. The dog has to come in at the person's side, which is the old term called heeling. Today, it's not always referred to as heeling, but the dog is right at your side coming in. The dog is not out like this. I had someone come in the door once, the door flung open, and the large golden retriever, it was almost like a small horse, came in at the end of the long 6-foot lead, the woman's arm extended, so we had about 8 feet. He was about 8 feet in front of her. And so that's the first thing I look for. The dog, and they have to be working as a team. The dog and handler. The handler has to know how to handle, and the dog has to know how to respond to the commands. So a well-working team. Then you want to see that the dog is moving towards whoever it is. If it's an elderly person in a wheelchair, that they're moving towards it. If I have once had a dog that didn't make it past the lobby of the nursing home because someone came down the hall with there's a 4-prong cane that it's rarely seen actually, but it's out there, and the dog went out of their mind. It was just out of control. The handler was shocked, and she said, "This is not going to work out." She left. She left. They have to be able to. That's why Michelle, when she teaches her classes, we have all the equipment, and you have the 4-prong cane, right? Yeah. We have the 4-prong cane, even though you rarely see it. We have the walker and the wheelchair. They have to be familiar with that. They may not even visit in a nursing home. They may visit in a hospital or visit, in a school environment. We also do specialized programs where it's school for children with learning disabilities, and we have one person who works with a private child psychologist who works with children who have dog phobias, and it's a one-on-one session. And I've worked with him as well years ago with one of my dogs, and it's been very successful because it's a therapy dog. The child doesn't need to be, worried. And go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to get back to the evaluation because I've done some of them too, but I think another thing, Cynthia mentioned the dog, interacting with the people and moving toward the people, but also the dog has to really be used to a lot of different kinds of sounds, and a lot of facilities that we visit are very loud and unpredictable. So sometimes dogs that's not a good fit for them. So lots of noises and clanking around. And different kinds of people can be a little bit rough. As the handler, it's your job, your dog's safety is always the priority. But your dog has to really kind of be used to all different kinds of people and a lot of different kinds of sounds. So that's something else we look for in an evaluation. And also the handler is as important as the dog. So sometimes people go in and they just let their dog kind of go wherever, but you as a handler should be making those decisions, and you should be also interacting with the residents. And sometimes people rely on their dog to do all of that, and it's really a team, and so we look for that too in the evaluation process.
And as kind of like a final question, say you're getting a puppy and you're wanting to teach them basic obedience and all of that. What are some quick tips for someone who wants to just, start that way, hopefully down the path to being a therapy dog?
Well, sure. I mean, and I can throw in any comments I feel like throwing in.
So I think basic obedience, you want basic sit, stay, down, come, leave it, those kinds of commands. But when you get a puppy, the attention span is pretty limited, just like with a little kid. So, if you bring home an 8 or 9 or 10-week puppy, training for about 5 minutes 2 or 3 times a day is about all that they can manage. And as you can see, her attention span is still pretty short at 6 months. So, and the same with walking on a loose lead. You want to start working on that really early. But I think one of the keys is just to be consistent in terms of commands. So if you have a spouse or a family, you want everybody to be using the same kinds of commands, and you want people to be consistent in their response to the dog. And you also really want to be patient with the dog and with yourself and not get frustrated, because generally the dogs want to do what you want them to do, and they're just trying to kind of figure it out. So.
And also it is very hard when it's a family that has young children, because, the roughhouse and play is things kids want to do with the dog, and it does make it harder, because one thing that we cannot have a dog do is be jumping up, as a therapy dog. And if they don't get that, if you're working with the dog as a puppy, you want to start working on that not jumping skill, because that's a tough one. That is a tough one to stop. And if they think it's a fun thing to do with the kids in the house, and it is hard. It is hard, because you certainly want your young children to enjoy the dog, but you all have to be on the same page. So, and then a word about training, because most of my dogs, because I get them from the breeder post-show career, I've had actually 8 English setters, and they have come to me later, but I take them to training class anyway, even though they're older. Classes are great, and I would like to say a little something about this facility where we do our therapy dog training classes. The facility is Animal Alliance's, owned and run by Kelly Boland, and she is very kind to sponsor us and let us use her facility for our therapy dog training classes. And she runs wonderful classes that are small classes, so you get a lot of individualized attention. And they start with puppy kindergarten, and you can get all types of things. And I say to people when they call me, or email me usually, and say, what kind of classes should I be taking? Well, beyond the basic obedience and intermediate obedience, I believe that they should have both. Then you want to do things like rally classes, where you're using a lot of the basic commands, but you're using them in different ways. You go through a course, and each station in the course will have you do something like down or sit or stand or stay or something. Rally is a lot of fun for dogs, and it builds the relationship with you and your dog. Or agility classes. Keep taking classes no matter what, because it builds the relationship between you and your dog. So.
Well, great. And if you have any other questions, be sure to comment below and we'll get those answered.